Welcome back. All right, as promised, we're going to talk about the Boston Bruins. Boston is set to miss the playoffs, and this is not something that happens often. In fact, the last time that it happened was 2016, the year that this channel started getting things rolling. So, yeah, it's been a long time. This is also set to be their first season with a below 500 record since 06-07. So, one of the worst Bruins teams we've seen in a long time, and their points percentage currently is below that 06-07 team. And the question becomes one of, is there a quick way through this? My answer to that is no. My answer to that, honestly, at this point in time is I don't think Boston comes out of this next season. Probably 2 years from now, they're still in the midst of a retool/rebuild, but we'll see. Don Sweeney, a controversial figure within Boston Bruins fandom for the way that he's handled the team and for some moves that he's made, and we'll talk about that. He's still probably going to be the guy throughout this. It feels like that Cam Neely and Don Sweeney are tied at the hip, whether they are or they're not, and so as long as one's there, the other's likely there as well. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Now, since the expansion of 1967, all those years back, yeah, even before I was born, the Bruins, this year included, will have missed the playoffs 8 times, which is remarkable. The longest period that they've missed playoffs since the 67 expansion is twice, where they missed 2 years in a row. Now, going into the 67 expansion, they had plenty of time where they were below the playoff line at the NHL level. And in the original 6, 4 out of 6 teams made it. Boston was very often one of the 2 that didn't. So, it has been a very long time since Boston was in a position like this, and they might be here for a bit. Now, looking at the losing streak, it started with a road game in Ottawa where they lost 6-3, and they trailed 4-1 after the first. So they weren't really in that game. Then they came home and they lost 6-2 against Tampa. That was a revenge game for Tampa because Boston had beaten them 4-0 in Tampa not long before that. That game was tied after the first at 1. Then also at home, they lost in overtime against Buffalo 3-2. That's a game they led 2-1 after the first. They are now currently behind Buffalo in the standings. Then they went on the road to Vegas. They lost 5-1. That game was tied at 0 after the first. They lost in San Jose 3-1. That was also scoreless after the first. And this might be where the indication was that the Bruins weren't going to come out of this soon. Then they go to LA. Well, predictable result in Los Angeles. They lose 7-2. That's a game they trailed 2-1 after the first. And yeah, LA just knocked them right out of the building. Then in Anaheim, they lost 6-2. That's a game that they trailed 1-0 after the first. So what you can see is that as the game rolls along, it just gets worse for Boston. I didn't even put the scoring numbers by each period because why? It's a 10-game losing streak. They haven't been good in the first, the second, or the third period, and they've found ways to lose in extra time as well. So then on this same road trip, they're in Detroit. They lost that game 2-1. They trailed 1-0 after the first. So they are the latest in what seems like a long line of teams from the East that have gone out to the West and found out California is no longer the easy 6 points. It's not even an easy 4 points anymore. Might be an easy 2 points in San Jose, but Anaheim and LA know how to play, and LA is the best home team in the league. Now, Boston came home for a game. They played against the Capitals. They lost that one 4-3. They trailed 2-0 after the first. And then last night, the reason we're here talking about them today, they lost 4-1 against the Montreal Canadiens, a game that was tied at 0 after the first period. So 3 times they've got out of a first period scoreless, but each of those games they only scored 1 goal themselves. Boston doesn't really have offense, and their defense is suspect. And the goaltending took a hit June 24th of last year. A trade which Bruins fans didn't like, and looking back, was it a mistake? I mean, if they still had Ullmark, I think they would have had a better season. I think if Ullmark and Swayman were still the tandem, it would have been a better season. They put their chips on Swayman, being the younger goaltender, totally understandable. And I still think Swayman can have a bounce-back season next year. His numbers prior to this season were very good. But this trade has not aged well. They traded Ullmark for Korpisalo, Kastelik, and a 2024 first-round draft pick. So, the Boston Bruins have found themselves in a tough position this year. And the weird part is Korpisalo's been the better of the 2 goaltenders for stretches. So, If they still had Ullmark, maybe they'd be closer to the playoffs, but maybe this is what they needed. The thing is, at the time Ullmark was traded, they certainly were not thinking about missing the playoffs this year. Now, the traded first-round draft picks, I wanted to look at a few, because they've traded a lot of first-round draft picks, and it's kind of stuck at me. And it's one of those things where people will say, well, they're later draft picks, so who cares? Who cares? They're not a number 1, top 5, top 10 draft pick. Who cares? They're late firsts. Who cares? Well, they should, because the first-round pick they traded in 2023 became Easton Cowan. Easton Cowan is probably the top prospect for the Toronto Maple Leafs at this point in time, and looks like he's going to be an excellent National Hockey League player. The 2022 first-round pick they had became Nathan Gauthier, who is a member of the organization of the Anaheim Ducks. In that draft pick, they also could have drafted Snuggerud, Rinzel, and Kulik. So these are 3 late first-round draft picks that were taken after Gauthier, who all look like they're going to be solid National Hockey League players. The 2020 first-round draft pick they traded became Jacob Perreault. Perreault has not panned out at the NHL level, but in that spot, Ridley Gregg would have been available, and so would Maverick Bourque. So this is the problem with trading first-round draft picks. We'll be like, who cares? If you are a Stanley Cup favorite, maybe, and yes, Boston had an excellent regular season in 2022-2023, but how far did they get in the playoffs? Not very far. Florida took them out that year, and it was kind of painful to watch as a Bruins fan. I know that all 31 other fan bases were happy to see it. Bruins fans were not. Now, their upcoming schedule, just to go over the last 6 games and ask where are they going to win a game. Tomorrow they're at home against Carolina. Since the odds are really against them, I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Carolina. Then on Sunday they're in Buffalo. On Tuesday they're in New Jersey. On Thursday they're at home against Chicago. So of the next 4 games, Buffalo, that should be a game that's winnable, even with Boston's lineup being as poor as it is. Let's be honest. And Chicago, that's a winnable game for Boston. Then they're on Sunday the 13th in Pittsburgh, and then they finish their season at home against the New Jersey Devils on Tuesday the 15th of April. So at least the season's done early-ish for Boston, where they're done 2 days before some of the other teams are, but it's tough getting over that line. Now, Pasternak's their leading scorer this season, 76 games, 37 goals, 52 assists, 89 points. At times, I've seen criticism of his play. On their current roster, their second leading scorer is Pavel Zacha, 76 games, 14 goals, 31 assists, 45 points. The reality of playing against Boston this year is simple. Shut down Pastrnak, they don't have much else. And so that's what teams have been focusing on. So while, yes, Pasternak's numbers have dropped off from where they've been in previous seasons, the entire team has, and for opposition teams, it is very easy to shut down Boston's offense. You just got to keep Pasternak's numbers down, and you're good. So I would expect as the team starts building itself back up, we see Pasternak's numbers get better again, but it's not going to be easy. So Pasternak's right here at $11.25 million for his cap hit until 2031. I think that's reasonable. I think that the cap hit for Pasternak's perfectly fine, considering his production and how long he's been a really good point producer for the Bruins. But Elias Lindholm at $7.75 million a year until 2031. That contract has aged just as badly as I was concerned that it might. Lindholm did not have a very good season last year. And it would appear that Don Sweeney was laser focused on Lindholm, so that even though he didn't have a great year, he still believed that Boston could help him turn things around. Or maybe he didn't think that things were right for him in Calgary and then in Vancouver, so going to Boston would be good. And while Lindholm had a solid playoff run with Vancouver last year, the regular season was a little bit more of a misadventure for Lindholm in Vancouver. And this year in Boston, the numbers just haven't been there. Zacha's their second leading scorer. So Lindholm is not number 2 on the list. I think he's number 3 or number 4, but he's below the 45-point mark. So that contract has not aged well. Mittelstadt, who they picked up from Colorado, $5.75 million cap hit till 2027. The hope has to be in Boston that Mittelstadt rediscovers his game and can get to another level, right? There's going to be some differing opinions on that. I have some concerns. I think that when you see a young player that multiple organizations have said, well, we're ready to move on from this player, you have to have some concerns about the flaws in their game. Obviously, there's flaws, otherwise they wouldn't be available via trade. And is Middlestad going to be the number 2 center next year? Is he going to be the number 1 center? Who's going to be the number 1 center? Is it going to be Lindholm? Because we've already seen the disaster that this season's been. We could go through it again next year. Zacha, $4.75 million cap hit until 2027. Zacha has been a good player, but at that production level, I would say he's better suited to second and third line work rather than first. And then there's Morgan Geekie, who is a restricted free agent this summer, but he's a year away from unrestricted free agency, and his cap hit this year is only $2 million. For the 27 goals he has this year, Geekie's due for a big raise. But how will that contract look? How will it affect their ability to add free agents if they decide to go that route on July the 1st? And this team needs young talent in the lineup. This is part of it as well. And part of the reason why, looking at first-round draft picks they've traded, it's been frustrating to watch. Boston's had an iffy prospect pool for some time because they've been a top team. That is standard, although there are teams near the top of the league that have good drafting and good scouting, and therefore it's not as noticeable with, say, Tampa's the one that comes to mind for me there. But yeah, McAvoy, $9.5 million cap hit till 2030. It has been very noticeable that he is not on the blue line for Boston. Same with Hampus Lindholm, $6.5 million cap hit until 2030. I think Hampus Lindholm is worth every penny of that cap hit when he's in the lineup, but he has to be in the lineup. That's been the issue. Without Lindholm and McAvoy, essentially they're without their top 2 defensemen. Then there's Zadorov, a $5 million cap hit till 2030. I still think that contract isn't fantastic either. So when you look at their cap situation, that's almost $13 million in cap space between Lindholm and Zadorov. And I don't think that you're getting that almost $13 million in value between the two. You guys can let me know your thoughts. But for what Zadorov's provided to Boston, and I think he's been better after a really rough start. I think he's been better the rest of the way. But still, it's a lot of penalty minutes, and it's a team that's definitely needing to get everything together, and having a guy who's in the penalty box once a game is going to lower your odds there. Peak, $2.75 million cap hit until 2026. I think that's fine. Yoki Haryu's a free agent this summer. His cap hit's $3.1 million. It'll be interesting to see if Don Sweeney opts to keep Yoki Haryu or if he lets Yoki Haryu go to market on July the 1st. Swayman. Everybody wants to pick on Swayman. I totally understand it. $8.25 million cap hit until 2032. That's a long time that they're spending that kind of money on Swayman. He has not performed up to that contract this season, but I still think that he can. And I still think he can have a bounce-back season. Goaltender's very tough to predict from one year to the next. Korpisalo, it's a $3 million cap hit for the Boston Bruins until 2028. It is less than they would have had to pay to keep Ullmark, but Ullmark is the better goaltender between Korpisalo and Ullmark. So they do have a few added picks, but they need to add more. They've added Toronto's 2026 first-round draft pick. They have 2 second-round draft picks this year, but they don't have their own. They have Carolina's and St. Louis's. So the 2 first-round draft picks they have are below their own draft pick that was traded. And they have Florida's 2027 second-round draft pick. So there's some work to be done by Boston with adding prospects and draft picks. This is what they need to do. They need to get younger. They need to be more skilled. They need to be faster. One thing watching them against Montreal last night was Montreal's speed was on full display, and Boston didn't really have an answer for that, or the skill that Montreal was putting on a show with, and so that's something Boston needs to look for, because at this point, Pasternak's basically an island, offensively and defensively. Without McAvoy and Lindholm, there has been a lot of struggling for Boston's blue line, and so my question to people watching this is a simple one. Does Boston need to embrace the rebuild, or should they be selling their fans on the idea that they can quickly fix this over the summer? They may try to tell people they can quickly fix this over the summer. I have my doubts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. And one last question for Bruins fans. Do you keep Joe Sacco on as coach, or do you look for someone else? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.